the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Already had a steep road of getting back into the playoff chase, the real contention chase. Ja Morant comes back. He's fun. They're starting to get a little bit healthy, and then Ja Morant's in a sling, and then it's announced that Ja Morant is lost for the season. What does this mean to you, Corban, in terms of what the rest of this Grizzlies season looks like and how you would go about it if you're running the Grizzlies right now?
At this point, let's see what we can get for guys like Zaire Williams. Let's see what we can look at for guys like Jake Larivia. Like, I'm not saying in a bad way. The Grizzlies already had an issue at their wing position regardless. Like, they already had an issue there regardless since, just at their three. So I feel like since Dylan Brooks, I guess. I mean, Dylan Brooks wasn't a perfect fit, but, like, they really miss him in general. Getting Ja Morant back was great. There was still issues that had to be worked out, right? And the team was still in a precarious position in the West where they had to climb a lot. Like, they're not going to bottom out low enough to be where the Spurs are, low enough to be in that area. They're not going to be in the cellar of the West, but they're obviously clearly not good enough to really compete for the upper, they're not making a play for the 6th seed, right? Like, at best, they're probably 9 and 10 at best if everything worked out. Obviously, and unfortunately, that did not happen. So I feel like the Grizzlies at this point, like, be active in the trade market, see if you can shore up some pieces around your team. So when Ja Morant comes back next season, he's come back to a better fit roster around him. You already know that you're not moving Ja. You already know how you feel about Desmond Bane. You already know how you feel about Jaren Jackson Jr. You get Steven Adams next year back. You get Brandon Clark possibly this year, but more than likely next year. And at this point, might as well just have him come back next year, right? And see if you can take some of your picks and some of younger players that you're not sure about or are sure about and want to reap some value for them to get better fitting pieces around this team so you can properly contend next year when Ja comes back healthy. That's what I would do, because right now, like, it is a lost season for Memphis. And it's unfortunate, but those happen, right? Look at the 2020 Golden State Warriors. I mean, you could look at the 2022 Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, there's teams that are just, it's lost seasons. You just gotta eat that. And I feel like the Grizzlies are in a position where they have to take that, but they can also reevaluate this team and make more aggressive moves, knowing that they're building for next season and not this season, but as a possible contender, and not like, we're just trying to get back in the playoffs.
What do you think, Jackson?
So this season, I recall before it that I thought the Grizzlies would be stabilized until Morant came back. And despite Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. playing very well, in my opinion, I think Jackson Jr. has a really good kind of left-handed push shot now, drive with his left hand and finish. And then obviously Desmond Bane is just ascending each and every season. What I underestimated is once the Kennard and Smart injuries hit, that puts so much emphasis on all of these younger players that have been, I'm not going to come on here and tell you guys that they're misses in the NBA draft, because I don't have that kind of refinement, like firm view on them that maybe a Memphis Grizzlies fan does. However, I will say Vince Williams Jr. has been a bright spot for them, but they got guys like Jake LaRavia, John Conchar, who's supposedly a trade candidate. He was actually a good find, undrafted, but this is just a weird kind of mismatch of injured players like Steven Adams and Brandon Clark. You got a vet like Derrick Rose, who I think he has a hamstring injury the last I checked. I might be wrong on that. But you go right. 6-3 with Ja in the games he played. I think they were 7-4 overall since he made his debut, and then he got the injury. And when I saw that news, that was such a gut punch, because I really liked what they had kind of retooled around Morant. And yes, I think a perception of the Grizzlies is that they were always a one-man show. I didn't like that kind of viewpoint, and they did lose Dylan Brooks, and it's a roster that's been in flux. But I really wanted to see Morant, Smart, Bane, Kennard, all these really solid, great perimeter players playing together. I'm a believer that you need to have as much ball handling and shooting as possible. And if you have guys who can shoot, be closeouts, ideally pair 2 or 3 of them together, you can get some really beautiful stuff, because as we see around the league, maybe you can have too much ball handling if it doesn't click with certain lineups and builds. But you don't want to play with having too little shooting, too little ball handling. And while I think the Grizzlies had the right idea trading for Marcus Smart, getting in on that, I think he's going to be a really good fit with Morant and JJJ and Desmond Bane moving forward. like Corban said, just not their year. Sometimes you have that season from hell, and you kind of have to wash your hands of it, assess the situation, and kind of gauge the value of everything around you in February moving forward.
I also wonder, Corbin, if you look at it, I mean, we know Jaren Jackson, he's made the leap, obviously a great defensive player and really broke out last year in this regard. The thing that I worry most, I wonder if you're a Memphis Grizzly fan, you worry most about, like, I don't know how many just great injury-free years you're going to get out of Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, very injury-prone early on in his career. We know how this goes with 7-footers, with the kind of skill set that Jaren Jackson has, and I don't know. That's what stinks about these lost seasons. When you have Ja Morant in his prime, when you have Desmond Bane playing the way that he is, when you make a big swing for a Marcus Smart, and you have Jaren Jackson playing at the level that he's playing at. You don't know how many bites at the apple you're going to get with this group, and to lose now the whole season just really being down the drain and Jaren being healthy, you're like, man, well, okay, we'll get Ja back next year, but like, am I sure that Jaren Jackson is going to be able to go and be as injury-free as he's been to this point? Like, are we sure the stars are going to align where all of our main core guys are going to be healthy at the same time? That's just necessary for a deep playoff run and getting to where you want to be. I don't know. It just sucks if you're a Grizzlies fan, because you really wanted to see what this group looked like healthy. And you look at the West this year, I mean, the Nuggets, I think, are still, probably the favorites right now in the West, I would say. But it's pretty wide open. Like, the Timberwolves are looking at the 1 seed, and we haven't seen a deep Timberwolves run yet, and we'll see what they look like. Like, if the Wolves get the Suns in round 1, I don't know. I mean, a healthy Suns versus Timberwolves?
I would hate that as a Timberwolves fan, because I think the Suns would beat the Timberwolves.
I think so, too. That's what I'm saying. Like, the West is open.
I think it would be tough. I'm going to say it. And I'm saying this is someone who, like, lived in Arizona up until this past summer. But, like, the Suns' defense is shaky. Mm-hmm. Their continuity among their 3 stars and their role players is almost non-existent, given the amount of time they've played together. Mm-hmm. You know? And also, Kevin Durant has slipped defensively. Bradley Beal's not a good defender. And Devin Booker is, like, okay there. But, like, an engaged Anthony Edwards come playoff time, that's a beast. Now, yeah, you could say the Suns could overwhelm the Wolves with all 3 of their stars playing at peak, and that's true. But I don't know. I definitely wouldn't be one. I'd definitely say it goes at least 6 games. I'm definitely not one to give the Suns. I don't see any reason to give the Suns benefit of the doubt. They haven't done anything yet.
Yeah.
Let me give benefit of the doubt. They're right here with the Lakers in the middle of the West, and the Wolves are the number 1 seed. And I think at this point, they're there because they've shown a body of work that, yes, they're good. Their crunch time execution has been not great. But neither has Phoenix's. So I don't know. I guess I'm pushing back just a little bit because I'm with y'all both. Like, I think Phoenix would beat them, but I don't know if it's a given at all.
No. I just think the broader point here is that it's open. Like, you can look at a lot of these matchups and you're like, man, I could see either of these going. Like, I'm not sure. Like, let me pull up the standings right now based on who is where. In the West. So right now it'd be Wolves, Rockets, but that the Rockets get the Suns in the play, and I would pick the Suns. So you're looking at probably Wolves, Suns, Thunder, Mavs, like Luka versus the first real, like this super young OKC team. You want Kyrie and Luka in that first round series? I could see absolutely Luka and the Mavericks getting out of that series against the Thunder. I still am a believer in what the Thunder are building long term, but do I think they're going to go deep in the playoffs? No, I don't. Young teams don't, generally speaking. Nuggets, Pelicans. It's going to be, I would take the Nuggets. That's probably the safest bet of anyone in the first. But Zion, who knows what Zion looks like in his first playoff series, and a healthy Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum. They're a deep team. That's going to be a little bit of a problem for Denver. And then Clippers, Kings. Like, I'd be pretty surprised if the Kings beat the Clippers, if both are healthy going into that series. But look, Kings, they're fun, and even though I don't know what's going on with Harrison Barnes and where he'll end up and what the Kings
I think
are doing,
they'll make a trade at the deadline. Not
back to Golden State.
Say that again.
Back to Golden State for Harrison Barnes. Where do you think he goes if you think he's moved to the deadline?
I have no idea. I'm not good at building trades or CBA ramifications, but just the reporting around the Kings, it seems like they really want to do something with Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes, and maybe Davion Mitchell, whatever kind of picks they can trade in the near future. I think that they need to add some size at the 3 and 4. I just look at the impact, like not to draw parallels between teams with European bigs, but the impact that Aaron Gordon had on the Nuggets. I think that if Kings got a player cut from a similar cloth who was a better defensive player than Harrison Barnes, because he's pretty slow-footed now. Obviously, the athleticism that we saw at North Carolina is the distant past. I don't know. I'm not great at building trades, but I don't want to count out the Kings. I don't want to count out any team in that upper tier in the West, because it's going to be all about matchups, health, timing, and everyone hates this, but luck too. I mean, if two even teams play, one of them is going to lose, even if they're even.
That's fair. That's fair. Corban, how many
Yes.
All-Stars are in Toronto right now? Because I've seen different takes on this. I've seen different, like, okay, is it, and let's throw OG on here, by the way. Pre-trade. We're going to throw OG back into this group. Do they have 3 All-Stars on this team? Can you have 3 All-Stars when you're having the kind of
Go. Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.